The little girl was still hanging from the basement pipe when police arrived. Her name was Josephine Otero. She was 11 years old. Upstairs, the rest of her family lay dead inside their own home. A father, a mother, a little boy, bound, strangled, left exactly where the killer wanted them. The house was silent except for police radios and the sound of officers trying to process what they were seeing. This wasn't just murder. It felt personal, controlled, almost ritualistic. Whoever did this had taken his time, and somewhere out there, he was probably watching the news coverage unfold with satisfaction. What nobody knew at the time was that this was only the beginning. For the next 17 years, the people of Wichita would live under the shadow of a monster who called himself BTK, bind, torture, kill. Long before the murders, before the headlines, before the letters to police, Dennis Lynn Rader was just another kid growing up in Kansas. He was born on March 9, 1945, in Pittsburgh, Kansas, before his family moved to Wichita. To neighbors, the Rader family seemed ordinary. Dennis was the oldest of 4 boys, quiet and reserved. The kind of child who blended into the background. But even as a young boy, something dark was already growing inside him. Rader later admitted that he tortured animals as a child. He also developed disturbing fantasies involving control, bondage, and death. While other kids played outside, Dennis was living in a fantasy world inside his own mind, a world filled with domination and violence. As he got older, the fantasies became more obsessive. He would steal women's underwear and dress himself up in bras, stockings, and nightgowns. Then he tied himself up with ropes and photographed himself acting out bizarre scenarios. Outwardly, nobody noticed anything unusual, but internally, Dennis Rader was becoming something dangerous. In the 1960s, he attended Kansas Wesleyan University before joining the United States Air Force. Military life gave him structure, discipline, and control, but it didn't stop the fantasies. After leaving the Air Force in 1970, Rader returned to Kansas. In 1971, he married a woman named Paula Dietz. Together, they had 2 children. He worked regular jobs, went to church, smiled, and at neighbors. He looked like the definition of an ordinary American man. But behind that normal life, something was building toward violence. Then came January 15th, 1974. The Otero family. Rader had been stalking them for some time. He later referred to potential victims as his projects. That morning, he entered the Otero home pretending to be a fugitive who needed food and a car. Their kind hearts became their undoing. The family cooperated, hoping they would survive. But Dennis Rader had no intention of leaving witnesses behind. He tied them up one by one and carried out the murders. They all died from suffocation. Joseph Otero died first, then Julie, then 9-year-old Joseph Jr. Last, Rader took Josephine into the basement. He watched the little girl lose her life. Investigators discovered forensic evidence on the girl that showcased just how disturbed he was. The brutality shocked Wichita. Families began locking doors during the daytime. Parents stopped letting children walk alone. Nobody understood who could commit something so monstrous. Meanwhile, Dennis Rader was already planning his next attack. Less than 3 months later, 21-year-old Catherine Bright became his next victim. This time, things didn't go according to plan. Catherine refused to give up without a fight. The struggle became violent and chaotic. Rader stabbed her repeatedly before fleeing. It would become the only BTK murder where the victim was not strangled. But something else happened after the Bright murder. something that changed the case forever. Dennis Rader's demeanor changed. The crimes were not enough on their own. He now craved attention and for the world to know his name. In October 1974, a local television station received a letter. Inside were details about the Otero murders that only the killer could know. Then came the line that introduced a new nightmare to America. The code words for me will be BTK. The killer had named himself, and now the entire city knew it. He wanted to feel powerful. He wanted to control not only victims, but also the police and the media. Over the next several years, BTK continued stalking Wichita. In March 1977, he murdered 24-year-old Shirley Vian inside her own home. Once again, he carefully controlled the attack following his routine so that he could witness the final moments while feeding his twisted fantasies. 9 months later came another victim, Nancy Fox, 25 years old. After the murder, Rader called police himself, calm and emotionless, as though he were reporting the weather. And then he vanished. Years passed with no murders. The city slowly relaxed. Some investigators believed BTK was dead. Others thought he had moved away or been imprisoned for unrelated crimes. But Dennis Rader was still there, living quietly among everyone else. And this might be the most disturbing part of the entire story. While police searched desperately for BTK, Dennis Rader became deeply involved in his community. He worked for ADT Security Services, installing home alarm systems. Think about that. A serial killer was entering people's homes, teaching families how to protect themselves. At the Christ Lutheran Church, he became a respected leader. He was also a Boy Scout leader. To the people in his life, he seemed strict and controlling, but harmless. Nobody imagined they were living next to one of America's most notorious serial killers. Then, after years of silence, the murders started again. In 1985, 53-year-old Maureen Hedge became another victim. In 1986, 28-year-old Vicky Wegerle. In 1991, 62-year-old Dolores E. Davis. After that, nothing. No letters, no murders, no communication. BTK disappeared completely. For more than a decade, the case went cold. Meanwhile, Dennis Rader carried on with everyday life beside his wife Paula and their children, hiding his darkest secrets from his family and the world. But eventually, he made the mistake that destroyed him. By the early 2000s, true crime stories were exploding online. Old serial killer cases were receiving new attention. But Dennis Rader noticed something. People weren't talking about BTK anymore. And for a narcissist obsessed with control and recognition, being forgotten was unbearable. So in 2004, he returned. Letters began arriving at police stations and television networks. Inside were disturbing photographs and details from old murders. He wanted the world to remember him. But technology had changed since the 1970s. And Dennis Rader didn't fully understand how much. During one of his written exchange with investigators, BTK asked a question that would become legendary in criminal history. He asked if a floppy disk could be traced. Police realized immediately that they had a chance. So they lied. They told him it was impossible to trace. His hunger for recognition may have finally clouded his thinking, and he believed the lie. Soon afterward, he mailed a floppy disk to police. Investigators examined the metadata hidden inside the files, and suddenly, BTK's secret life began collapsing. The disk pointed toward Christ Lutheran Church. The user attached to the files was named Dennis, Police searched the church records. The church council president was Dennis Rader. After decades of mystery, the pieces finally fit together. DNA evidence confirmed it. BTK had finally been identified. On February 25, 2005, police pulled Dennis Rader over near his home. The officer approached the vehicle calmly and asked, "Mr. Rader, do you know why you're going downtown?" Rader looked at him and said, "Oh, I have a suspicion why." And just like that, the ghost-haunting Wichita was gone. At trial, Dennis Rader confessed to 10 murders in horrifying detail. He spoke with almost no emotion, as though he were discussing routine chores instead of human lives. Families sat in the courtroom listening to him calmly describe exactly how their loved ones died. The entire country watched in horror, not only because of what he had done, but because he looked so ordinary while describing it. In August 2005, Dennis Rader received 10 consecutive life sentences. He was sent to El Dorado Correctional Facility in Kansas, where he remains today. His own family was devastated by the revelation. His wife immediately filed for divorce after learning the horrible truth about her husband. The life he had carefully constructed for decades collapsed overnight. Even now, years later, the BTK case remains one of the most terrifying serial killer stories ever told. Because Dennis Rader shattered one of humanity's greatest comforts, the belief that evil is easy to recognize. Because sometimes, the monster isn't hiding in darkness. Sometimes, he's standing beside you in church.